we'll be looking at how to work with background images, understanding background images. Just as we have learned how to display images in HTML documents with the image tag, we can also display images with CSS, and the property that we used is background. So the background property takes in a bunch of other properties, which we are going to break down. These properties can also be used as a standalone. You can either use it as a background image to add image to the background. You can use background color to add color to the background. Background repeats if you don't want the background to repeat itself multiple times. Background size, you want to declare the size, the width and height in which you want your background image to occupy. Background position, when you want to position your background image. Background attachment, where do you want to place the image also. So first, we'll be looking at the background image. This is used to display an image on the background of an element from a file path or from a URL source. So basically, we have to download an image to be able to work, to display content, the image here. So first, let's go to this site on Splash, where we can download stock images from. So we can just type in, or we don't even have to type, you can just download any image you like here. Okay, I think I'll go with this car. So you can just click this download arrow to download the image. So I've downloaded the image here. So I can decide to open it. So I'll copy the image. Or I can decide to copy the image. Copy. So we have our image here. So let's rename it. So we have card. Let's close this here. So let's go into our style. So inside here we have our div. This div here. Let's select our div. So let's give it an height, say 100 pixel. Let's give it a width, 100 pixel. So let's attach the image through the standalone property of background image. So we add the URL, then the path to the image in quotes. So we'll say this, write this. So that's the image. So because the box we design, this 100 pixel box is too small to show the image. That's why we have this small box here. So if we decide to just remove this, or rather than remove, let's give it an 100%. So it takes up the whole screen. So this is it. Well, you can see that it's occupying the whole screen and we can't really see the car. So one thing we can also do is we can decide to use the background size. So what's the background size? Background size, this property is used to set the size of the background image. It accepts keywords such as length, percentage value to set images. So you can use keywords such as cover, The keyword cover will allow the image to occupy the entire space created by its element while maintaining its aspect ratio. So we can see, okay, background size, cover, can either be cover or contain. So this cover, can you see? So it covers the whole size created by its elements. So that's the 100 viewport height. Oh, sorry, I intend this to be 100 viewport width. Width, not height. So it's occupying the cover will allow it to cover the area created by its elements. So the width of the div is 100% viewport width, the height is 100% viewport height. So cover will now allow it to occupy that whole entire space. So we also have contain. This makes the image occupy its right size within its elements. So when we add contain now, the exact image, the exact size of the image is what the image will occupy within that element, within this 100 viewport height and 100 viewport width. Do you understand? So even if its space, the dimension of the image is bigger than the viewport height and viewport width, it will scroll out of it. You understand? But the cover will try to bring the image down to the size of the element, to the size of its parent its containing element. So let's try that. And if the image dimension of the image is quite smaller than that of the element, there's a possibility of the image to repeat itself. Do you understand? There's a possibility of the image to repeat itself within the containing element. So let's use contain now. Can you see? So the image is now trying to repeat itself. And this is where the actual dimension of the image stops for the width. And immediately after it, the image is trying to replicate itself just to occupy the entire 100 viewport width of the screen. So to nullify this effect, if you don't want this effect, there's also a background property, which is background repeat. And the background repeat can either be in the y-axis if the image is repeating itself in the y-axis or in the x-axis. So, but the shorthand form is this: background repeat. So we can decide to set background repeat to no repeat. So when we set no repeat, you can see. So we can now have the remaining white space for the viewport's width, so it doesn't repeat the image. And if the image, since for our previous example the image was repeated, let's remove the background no repeat. So the image repeats itself now. Yeah, so since for us the image was repeating itself along the x-axis, so we can decide to say background repeat x and say no repeat. Can you see? But if we did this background repeat y no repeat, the image will repeat itself. Why? Because we are targeting the y-axis, whereas the image is repeating itself along the x-axis. So, but the shorthand form is just to say background repeat no repeat. So along the x, if the image is repeating itself along the x-axis or the y-axis, this will cover up for both axes. And if you want it to repeat, you can say background repeat. But this is the default value. So if we don't, removing this is equivalent to adding this is equivalent to not writing it at all. Background repeat is the default. Do you understand? So the browser will always repeat it. So all you can do is just say no repeat to notify the default behavior of the browser when it comes to the way it places image. Another thing we can also look at now is background size. So we just looked at background size contain. So let's look at the percentage and length value for background size. So whenever length and percentage value are used, the image is scaled to the specified length or percentage value. For example, if we say, okay, we want our background size, rather than using contain or cover, we want it to be 30 pixel, 20 pixel. Can you see how tiny the image is? Look at this is the image, see how small it is. So what this means is that along the x-axis, it takes 30 pixel along the x-axis and 20 pixel along the y-axis. Can you see? So let me try and increase this to like something 300 pixel along the x-axis and 200 along the y-axis. Let's see how it looks like. You can see the image is stretched out. Let's try and make it uniform, like say 300 by 300. Can you see this image? So we can also decide to use a percentage value, like let's say we want it to be 20 pixel along the x-axis and you can see how the image is. So let's increase that. 30, let's say 30% by 30%. You can see. So you can also use percentage value, length value for background size. So we also have background position. So background position allows you to set the position you want the background image to be placed within its elements. The default position is always the top left corner, just like we have it now. You can see that it's positioned at the top left corner, and the coordinate for that position is 0 on the x-axis and is 0 on the y-axis. So it's always starting at this point, which is 0, 0, which is more like the origin. It acts like a coordinate system, so we can decide to move it along any axis. We can decide to say, okay, since we know that this is 0 on the x-axis and 0 on the y-axis, we can now say, okay, we want our background position. We can now say background position. Background position, we can decide to say, okay, we want to move it 10 pixels, sorry. We can also use percentage too. 10% on the x-axis, and let's say 10 pixels, sorry, on the y-axis too. So let's see. You can see it moved a bit. So let's increase the value. Let me make it something like 100, so you can really see the big push. And let me make this 50 from the y-axis. Can you see? So 100 on the x-axis and 50 on the y-axis. So we can also use percentage value. So I can say I want it to move like say 20%. If I use 100%, I think it's going to move it to the entire end of the screen on the x-axis. Can you see? So let's say 50. So I'm sure 50 will put it at the center of the screen. So let's say 50 on the x-axis and 50 on the y-axis. You can see at the center of the screen. So background position. So we can also use keywords, like we can also use something like we'll say left, bottom. So you can use keywords like left, top, center, right. So let's use center now. So center is equivalent to the 50% on the left and 50% on the y-axis and 50% on the x-axis. So this is center. I can see the image is center. So but when we say something like bottom left, we want it to be placed bottom left. Can you see? So for this now, on the y-axis it is placed on the bottom. On the x-axis it's placed at the bottom, and on the x-axis it's placed at the bottom, and on the y-axis it's placed on the left. So we can also do something like bottom right. Can you see? So you can play around with this and move the position and move it the way you want. Just play around with it to get a better understanding of how it works. So let's look at background attachments.